To keep Roswitha from having a peaceful night's rest, Leon decided to tease her about her childhood. He mimicked the way Roswitha used to take showers as a kid, even singing the same silly song she used to hum back then. Watching her grow increasingly speechless with rage amused him greatly. With a smirk, he leaned in, one hand pressed against the wall, and began to mock her. "You're really stupid." At that moment, Roswitha lowered her head in silence, her hands curling into tight fists at her sides. Leon's joke had clearly enraged her, but she didn't explode in fury or lash out with insults. Instead, she held the storm inside, forcing herself to stay composed. The anger burned hot in her chest, but she swallowed it down slowly, choosing control over chaos. After a few tense seconds, she lifted her head, her gaze narrowing into a cold, sharp squint. Her voice, though calm, carried a dangerous edge as she spoke to Leon, each word dripping with restrained fury. "It seems like you're quite bored, Leon." Then, without warning, Roswitha placed a firm hand on Leon's shoulder and slammed him against the wall. The sheer strength behind the motion stunned him. He didn't even have time to react before his back hit the cold stone surface. Her brows were tightly furrowed, and her piercing gaze locked onto his face, radiating fury. The pressure of her grip began to intensify, her hand steadily tightening on his shoulder like a warning. From her reaction alone, it was clear Roswitha was furious, and the consequences of provoking her were no small matter. Leon's expression shifted. His brows dipped slightly, his mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. A cold sweat formed on his face. He was clearly rattled. One glance at her eyes told him he'd made a serious mistake. For now, he didn't dare move a muscle. "Should we continue doing what we didn't do last night?" To Leon, Roswitha looked like an embodiment of wrath itself. Her eyes seemed to glow with a fierce red glint, and her usually elegant silver hair now hung in wild, disheveled strands around her face. She clenched her left fist tightly with her right hand, producing a low, ominous sound that sent a chill down his spine. Every twitch of her fingers screamed one thing: she was aching to deliver a hard, satisfying punch straight to his face. At that moment, Leon realized, with dreadful clarity, that his joke had gone far beyond the line. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the look on her face left no room for doubt. He was in serious trouble. He stared at her, wide-eyed, and silently muttered to himself, "She-dragon is angry. I'd better run away first." Noticing that Roswitha was still seething and momentarily distracted by her own fury, Leon seized the opportunity. Without hesitation, he turned on his heel and darted away, slipping out of her reach and making a beeline for his room. It took a second for Roswitha to register what had happened. But once she did, her expression darkened even further. Realizing that Leon had fled, she stormed after him, her footsteps quick and heavy. She stopped just outside his door, her voice rising with anger as she shouted after him. "Stop!" Leon sprinted toward his room's door, throwing it open and rushing inside. Just as he reached out to close it, a sudden hand shot into the doorway, stopping the door from shutting. Startled, he barely had time to react. He hadn't expected Roswitha to follow him so quietly and run so fast. Her grip on the door was iron tight, preventing it from closing any further. Then, from somewhere behind the door, a deep, almost sinister burst of laughter echoed through the room. Leon's heart raced as Roswitha slowly pushed the door open wider, peering through the narrow gap at him, standing defenseless inside. A cruel smile curled at the corners of her lips as she fixed him with a cold, heavy gaze and spoke in a low, threatening tone. "I'll give you 10 minutes. After you take a shower, come to my room. Tonight, Miss Melky will teach you what happens if you provoke me with dark history." Roswitha frowned deeply, her gaze sharp and unwavering as she stared intently at Leon, delivering her command with an unmistakable authority. The weight of her presence pressed down on him. The unique, commanding aura befitting a queen radiated from Roswitha, filling the room with an oppressive intensity. Leon felt utterly helpless. A cold premonition settled in his chest. If he obeyed her order, he knew he would face the same painful ordeal as before. Yet, if he refused, the punishment could be even harsher. Before he could gather the courage to respond, Roswitha slammed the door shut with a force that echoed down the entire corridor. The heavy sound lingered in the air long after she had hurried away, her footsteps fading into the distance. Leaning against the closed door, Leon stood frozen, speechless. After a long moment, he closed his eyes and brought his hand up to his mouth, slapping it lightly several times in frustration. Bitter curses escaped his lips as he scolded himself for the trouble his careless joke had caused. Why does my mouth have to be so annoying? At last, Leon fully grasped the consequences of his careless joke. It had landed him in serious trouble. Stopping his frustrated self-smacks, he lifted his head and vividly recalled the furious expression on Roswitha's face the moment she heard his words. The memory sent a chill down his spine. Suddenly, a spark of an idea flickered in his mind. It seemed he had thought of something that might just help him turn the situation around. I didn't expect her to react so strongly. But this precisely shows that dark history is very effective for her. Leon crossed his arms firmly over his chest, deep in thought as he considered how best to retaliate against Roswitha. A victorious smile slowly spread across his face, as if he had just uncovered a clever and effective strategy to strike at her. His plan was to dredge up embarrassing moments from Roswitha's childhood, those private, vulnerable memories that would shame and humiliate her. He knew such a blow would shake her emotionally, and he could already picture the look on her face when her defenses cracked. Though he understood that her emotional breakdown would come at a price, enduring harsh physical punishment himself, he saw it as a sacrifice necessary for the greater cause of dragon slaying. In his mind's eye, Leon imagined a dramatic scene. Standing atop a cliff, waves crashing fiercely against jagged rocks below. Draped in a flowing blue cape, he struck a bold, fearless pose, his hand raised defiantly against the storm. This was his resolve. He was willing to do whatever it took to seek revenge. His expression softened with sadness as he clenched the fabric of his shirt tightly in both hands. He recalled how every time he launched a plan against Roswitha, she retaliated fiercely, spending the entire night venting her wrath on him. It left him feeling drained, as if his very body were being emptied of strength. Yet, despite the toll, he pushed those worries aside. For the sake of his plan, he could no longer afford to care. Muttering quietly to himself, he accepted the pain as a necessary cost. It's okay if my body breaks down. As long as it can make the Silver Dragon Queen uncomfortable, I am duty-bound. At that moment, Roswitha was showering in her room. Behind the translucent curtain, her slender legs were faintly visible, gently tapping the tiled floor in a relaxed rhythm. The warm water cascaded slowly over her thighs, sending a comforting mist through the bathroom. Her head and body were lathered with fragrant shower gel, bubbles dancing and swirling across her skin like tiny clouds. After covering herself in soft foam, she switched the shower head to rinse away the suds. She tilted her head back, welcoming the soothing warmth as it streamed over her hair and shoulders. A soft smile curved her lips as she raised her hands to wash her hair, humming a gentle tune that floated lightly through the steamy air. The anger that had once burned in her eyes seemed to have melted away, replaced by a quiet calm and even a subtle anticipation for Leon's arrival. Throughout the castle, most rooms had already fallen into darkness for the night. Only Leon's and Roswitha's chambers remained lit, glowing softly in the silence. Yet Leon, still proud and confident in his clever revenge plan, had no idea what awaited him next. Wait for me, Rosa. Leon was determined to press on with his joke, hoping it would deliver a sharp mental blow to Rosita. Not long after finishing his shower, he stepped into Rosita's room, confidence still high. But as the minutes ticked by 10, then more, he saw no sign of her being emotionally shaken or embarrassed by his prank. Instead, the sharp crack of a whip sliced through the air, echoing ominously throughout the room. The harsh sound was unmistakable. Roswitha was punishing him again. Leon's heart sank. He couldn't endure this kind of treatment any longer. He couldn't help but shout loudly,